Hello. Good evening to you all. Welcome to the 16th webinar organized by Pallavan Learning Systems in collaboration with Centre for Escalation of Peace and Ritinjali. My name is Choki Wangchuk, and today I'm representing PLS, or Pallavan Learning Systems, which is an educational research organization. And we primarily focus on the concept of learning how to learn, centered around the 5 areas of development. As you all know, one of the main objectives at Pallavan Learning Systems is conducting research, but we also organize seminars and conferences such as this webinar. And we do this so that what we do remains current and relevant to the rapidly changing times in terms of the creation and the dissemination of new knowledge. Over the years, we have conducted many webinars, 15 to be precise, and they have dealt with a range of topics. We have dealt with the future of learning. We have looked at developing a thriving learning community. We have also looked at the relevance or the irrelevance of formal education. And we have looked at assessment and thinking about valuing what really matters. If you are interested in any of these topics and would love to learn more, please do reach out to us and we would be more than delighted to share the detailed reports on them. Now coming to the present webinar. Today's webinar is the second part of the two-part series, which is designed to provide a nuanced understanding of how students, teachers, principals, school leaders are utilizing technology and AI in their daily lives and how it is changing the way they think, the way they function, and the way they learn and grow. This second part of the webinar will deal with how IT specialists and coders, policymakers, and content creators are responding to the needs of those in the education ecosystem and how they are constantly refining technology and AI in the education field. Now, I am pleased to introduce our moderator for today, who also presided over the first part of the series. Pranav Sharma is an astronomer and a science historian known for his work on the history of the Indian space program, and his specialization is in international networks of science and technology. He is known to have created the Space Museum at the B.M. Birla Science Center, and he has led many exhibitions on Indian space history. He is also a writer, and he has co-authored the book Essential Astrophysics, Interstellar Medium to Stellar Remnants, and his upcoming books include History of Neutrino Research and History of 21st Century Science in India. Before I hand over the floor to the moderator, a note for our audience present today. If you have any questions, any inquiry, comments, suggestions for the panel, please do share them in the chat box feature. We will try to get them answered and responded to during the Q&A session. Of course, any observation, any comments from your side will definitely add to the depth of the conversation we are having today. Now, can I invite our moderator, Pranav Sharma, to introduce our panelists and start the discussion on this very topical and important theme of how technology and AI in education is changing and how we need to explore the benefits and unintended consequences, but also look at how to address these intended consequences. Thank you.
Thank you, Choki. Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody, on this panel discussion. The reason that we are having this discussion is because artificial intelligence post 2022 has rapidly permeated the education systems worldwide. Now, the question that we have is that how do we balance technology integration and human-centric learning environments? And that question has become very significant. Education, especially in the areas of creativity and intelligence, it primarily thrives on human interaction, empathy, and personal engagement. Now, the question is, how can AI, with its growing influence, complement rather than hindering these essential aspects of learning? This panel of fantastic people will explore how educators, policymakers, ethicists, technologists can foster AI integration in ways that enhance creativity, critical thinking, intelligence, without compromising the core human elements of education. But before I introduce our panelists for the day, this a little brief for the audience of the day, that as we harness the potential of artificial intelligence, it is crucial that we acknowledge that there are potential drawbacks, especially when it comes to education, particularly for students who depend on AI for creativity and educational, emotional development. The challenge is to ensure that artificial intelligence serves as an augmentative tool, not as a substitute for human interaction and creative thinking. As we know that creativity thrives on exploration, personal experience, and nuances of human interaction, it's quite difficult as of today to replicate it through machine learning algorithms. So now the educators must have to be mindful of how they integrate AI into their curricula to ensure that students remain active participants in the learning process. They use AI to enhance, not diminish their. But there's a broader question when it comes to technological intervention and uh, education, is the question of equitable access. While we say that AI has the potential to transform education, it also poses the risk of exacerbating existing inequalities. The students in rural and underprivileged areas, they often lack the access to the technological infrastructure that is necessary to benefit from AI-driven educational. Now, this digital divide can further disadvantage or already marginalized groups that exist in these kind of communities, which in the end widens the education gap in urban and rural areas between wealthy and underprivileged students. Now, the question is for the policymaker that how you would consider that AI is to be leveraged only to provide better resources, not only for very well-connected urban settings, but also to uplift the rural education, ensuring that every student who comes to you for that kind of technological intervention is given that kind of attention despite whatever background that student comes from. And there are several ethical considerations that uh, we are dealing with. We discussed about it a little in the last webinar. So that as we see that there's a kind of a rapid integration of AI that is happening into the classrooms, there's several ethical concerns that are raising, particularly around data privacy, algorithmic bias, potential misuse of AI-based technologies. Now the question is, how are we going to address these kind of ethical challenges that we are posed to? If and the other thing that has to be mentioned on the floor for the panelists to ponder upon, and while we are doing this panel discussion, maybe if one of you can address it, that if machine learning algorithms are not carefully monitored, it's not that they want to create that kind of bias. They may, in the end, unintentionally reinforce those biases in the student assessment or the learning process outcomes. So, and the heart of this conversation is in the recognition that education is profoundly a human. It's rooted in relationships, it's rooted in interaction, it's rooted in intelligence, it's rooted in creativity. Yes, we say that artificial intelligence is a creative tool. It cannot, or rather should not, replace nuances of human interaction. So to discuss these various aspects of artificial intelligence, education, technological intervention, and largely the future of human civilization, we have three wonderful panelists. We have Sohani Ahuja at the Vasant Valley School. She's the head of the Technology Council. She makes films very passionately. She has a passion for storytelling and digital media. She explores the intersection of film and artificial intelligence, using AI for various creative processes, including digital. The other panelist is Dr. Amred Behra, who's a joint director at the Central Institute of Education and Technology at NCRT. He started his career as a lecturer, and Dr. Behra joined NCRT in 1996. And since progressed to become professor of education and technology. His work spans educational technology, media integration, and ICT in education. His work has contributed significantly to the development and dissemination of audiovisual materials, online courses, and teacher training activities. Then we have Professor Ishwaran Narasimhan. He's a professor of computer science and engineering at NIIT University. He has over 4 decades of experience in academia and consulting. His research areas are centered around understanding the internet behaviors, promoting innovation, and developing algorithms. He has also delivered complex algorithms for various manufacturing processes and their optimization, such as decal optimization, cargo scheduling, and multi-factor authentication. Now, as we go forward, I have specific questions for all our panelists, but we'll take one round of quick comments from all of us, from all the panelists here. And the most important, the foremost question that I want to ask, which I want your quick comments on, is how can educators and learners balance the integration of artificial intelligence in education with the need to preserve human-centric learning environments, particularly in the subject that heavily rely on creativity and intelligence, be it emotional, be it other kinds. I will start with Suhani. We'll take your comments and then we'll go to Professor Bera and then Professor Nassim.
Right. So thank you for having me here, sir. So I would just like to start by saying that obviously human interaction in education is crucial. AI will never be truly able to replace it. However, with our current growing state, AI is also inevitable to be included in education. So rather than hindering our process or trying to say that human interaction could be in danger of getting replaced, I would like to say that AI can be used as a good starting point, for especially in subjects which have to be used with a lot of creativity. For example, as a digital artist myself, I would not say that I can definitely create everything with AI, though it's a very good starting point that I can ask it to create something and I can grow on my vision from there henceforth. But it's not imperative that I can start just using AI necessarily.
Professor Bera, your quick comments.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for the opportunity to discuss. And I strongly feel that artificial intelligence, machine learning is going to make a difference in the education scenario. In the sense, a large number of resources can help us to have a holistic, integrated, engaging, and joyful learning scenario. And also, if we talk about the policy direction also, the National Education Policy 2020 has given a lot of emphasis on use and integration of technology. And from schooling to higher education, this is going to make a big difference. And given the diversity we have in India among learners, among teachers, and among the system, like we have 1.5 million schools in the system, and 9.4 million teachers in the system, and 260 million students in the schooling system itself. So for equitable quality education and lifelong learning and providing skills and competencies to every child, I strongly feel that artificial intelligence, robotics, machine learning can help in a large scale. If you permit me to cite an example, like NCERT in the history of the education. So we have been producing textbooks in only 4 languages: English, Hindi, Urdu, and Sanskrit, and around 377 titles we used to bring. But with NEP 2020 implementation and with machine learning use, artificial intelligence use, we could translate NCERT books into 22 Indian languages through machine learning intervention. And we could provide that book in 23 languages, including English, rather than only having books in a couple of languages. So in a way, we are enabling the learners to access the resources and learn. And the policy has rightly mentioned, we need to break the no hard separation jink also, because the policy says that usually while dealing with discrete subjects, then there are discrete disciplinary boundaries, holistic education always suffer. So in that case, artificial intelligence, robotics, and machine learning are going to be a boon for the system. Definitely ethical use and safety with adequate safety and security measures can help us to go ahead. Thank you for the time being. And
Can you hear me?
yeah,
Hello?
Yes.
Yes, Professor
Okay.
Ishwar. Yeah.
Yes. So I think we have had 3 generations of haves and have-nots. I think initially it was purely hardware and access to hardware, which the world by and large has solved it to a large extent. Access to computing is not a big issue. We can move resources to get it done. The next issue was moving and giving access to software, which again, movements such as free software, open source software have also addressed it. But the current era is talking about artificial intelligence. And here the divide is on who has a good quality data becomes a very important feature. We all want everybody to know and learn at a pace which is uniform. But then we find that people who are learning, do they have the correct data and do they have the ethical database? Now, who defines ethics becomes a very big question. You could continue to teach in rural areas, but if you're teaching with a wrong data set, then you continue to perpetrate all the errors which you have done before, just like you are now perhaps doing with and having a difference because of the quality of teachers may suffer. But assuming the quality of teachers improves and AI substitutes in many fashion these concepts, then the question of who monitors AI becomes a very big question. And I would like to dwell later on this in a much better manner, because education, where at the end of the day, when you finish education and people go out in the market for professional lives, are they equipped with ability to discern what is right and what is wrong in a world which is dominated by LLMs and AI in a big way? So that becomes a crucial role they play in the corporate life, and become a better corporate and social citizens. It becomes that they are able to discern, and ability to discern comes only from training them in a better fashion. I would like to stop my comment here at this point of time and leave it the thoughts behind that.
Thank you, Professor Nasir. My first question, as we discussed about policy, as Professor Mehra had mentioned, the first thing that I would like to ask you for the benefit of our audience is what kind of strategies that can be implemented at the policy level. And I'm using the word implementation very cautiously. The documents are fantastic, but do we have that kind of implementations that ensures equitable access to AI-driven education tools, particularly for students from rural or underprivileged background, to ensure that technology is not narrowing, to ensure that technology actually narrows rather than widens the divide. Professor Bera. Professor Bera.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pranabji. And I strongly feel, and as you have mentioned, the technology really helps us to narrow down the gap and bridge the digital divide. And we strongly believe in that. And that too, I mentioned about the scale in India we have, the diversity in India we have. How we have been doing. And as I mentioned, there is a clear-cut policy direction how ICT and particularly AI and ML needs to be integrated in the schooling to higher education system. And based on the policy direction, the NEP 2020 direction, the government of India has gone ahead with developing a digital India architecture for the whole country. In 2021, it was developed after the policy came in. And it was jointly developed by the Ministry of Electronics and IT, Government of India, and Ministry of Education, both higher and school education department. And the National Digital India, National Digital Education Architecture, this is a overarching document which talks about having such kind of technology which is cutting edge, disruptive, and also helping us to bridge the digital divide as well. So it did talk about integrated, interoperable, federated also, and also level-based FOSS, free and open source softwares and platforms. Not only that, also inclusive, so that the differently able to learners also get opportunity to learn that. And recently, as a part of the NEP 2020 policy direction and NDR National Digital Education Architecture Direction, so National Curriculum Framework for School Education in India for foundational stage for grade pre-primary 3 year and up to grade 1, 2, and also school education national curriculum framework has been brought in, developed, and with the leadership from NCERT. My parent organization under the aegis of Ministry of Education. And as a part of that, at schooling stage also, the AI ML is being introduced and the curriculum work is on. And besides that, at digital education delivery level also, design and delivery level also, even content design level also, we have started using artificial intelligence. I cited one example for translation of large documents in multiple Indian languages. And the second example I would like to cite is E-Jadui Pitara. Actually, E-Jadui Pitara is designed as a tool, as a mobile app by the Ministry of Education, Government of India, so which caters to the need of parents and teachers and all other stakeholders who are at foundational stage, particularly those whose kids are in 3-year, undergoing 3-year pre-primary and 2-year early grade 1 and 2. And this mobile app is using 3 AI bots. One is a story bot, because all of us are parents also. Many times you might have heard small children before going asleep, they ask parents, Mama, एक story बता दो ना, नींद नहीं आ रहा है, so I'm not getting asleep, so please narrate a story. So from where parents will bring 365 days, 365 stories. So we have developed a bot on a mouse click on with audio and text inputs. So it can create a story based on the characters we specify. And that help the parents to get ready to narrate a story during bedtime. And similarly, we have introduced a teacher bot, we call it Teacher Tara, and a parent bot, a parent Tara. The teacher bot helps a teacher. Suppose I have 2 visually challenged children in my class and 1 hearing impaired child in my class. So tomorrow I have to teach them currency notes. So what kind of input, lesson plan and technology I should use so that they learn whatever I am going to do, and also develop appropriate competencies and skills in that subject area. So in that case, what we have done, so based on the policy and all the documents developed, the AI bot has been trained in a way, all these documents, that bot can search the resources and put a lesson plan before the teacher, saying that these are the possible ways. Suppose the visually challenged children would love to have a tactile touch as well as audio intervention. So audio tactile intervention could be a better way of interacting. And suppose it is currency note, there are denominations given in perforated form, which is slightly perforated. By touching it, so the visually challenged child can make out whether it is a 5 rupees currency note or a 100 rupees note. So this kind of particularly apps which are integrated with AI bots like ChatGPT kind of function and others, so that the resources can be faced by the stakeholders with each. And another intervention which we have started, Diksha, digital infrastructure for knowledge sharing. It is one of the largest platform in school education in India. So, and every day, lakhs of people, millions of people, they hit the Diksha platform. And there are 300 plus 1,000 plus in India, 350 lakh digital contents are there. What we have done, we have introduced a search engine using AI, so that even if there are 350,000 content, so the child, if requires some content on air pollution, noise pollution, or on condensation process, so it can search the whole textbook, document, videos, and give the resources in a time-bound manner within that resource. Even we have introduced a video search engine with AI ML integration, and so that it can help the stakeholders to get the resources at each. Similarly, the national level data center has been created. We call it Rashtriya Vidya Samiksha Kendra, to have aggregated data and data-driven decision making can happen. Like I was mentioning, we have 1.5 million schools in India, 260 million children in India. Yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Behra, I just wanted to understand how much of it is in rural India.
Actually, as far as I was mentioning about this national, particularly platform Vidya Samiksha Kendra. So if I talk about 22 states, we have integrated their students and the teachers' data so that data-driven decisions can happen. And as far as the resources reaching out to rural areas are concerned, what we have done, the Diksha platform and the resources are also available offline to the stakeholders. So that even if the school is having an intranet, even if they have a Nook, a small hard disk or a laptop or a desktop, so all the Diksha resources can similarly be accessed by the stakeholders, even if they are in rural remote areas. So that has also been taken care of. So some of we have developed a teacher training app called NISTA, National Initiative for School Heads and Teachers Holistic Advancement. So the teacher training modules are available offline to the teachers as well. So not only having online resources. So we are thinking simultaneously that whether it is a rural, remote, hilly, terrain area child or a child in from the city and particularly suburbs. So how they can access the resources, and also with limited connectivity, how the resources can be accessed and used. So these are some of the experiences I am sharing. We are still into it that how more meaningfully we can bring in the resources and reach out to the stakeholders with limited connectivity and resources. Over to Pranav.
Perfect, sir. I will go to now Professor Narasimhan, and Sohani will have the last word, as it should be. Professor Narasimhan, Professor Behra talked about the kind of data-driven decision-making that is going to happen, and all the other initiatives that do exist in the landscape as of today. But my question to you is, as a technologist and as a educator for more than 4 decades, what kind of ethical frameworks do you think should exist to guide the deployment of technologies, machine learning algorithms, artificially intelligent tools in classrooms, be it in schools, be it in higher education, primarily in schools, because that is where the most of your key data handler, to use the word, exist. While we are doing this kind of integration in the classrooms, is there a way of ensuring data privacy? I know that the DPDP Act does some kind of this thing, but just because that the act exists, that does not mean that the privacy does, right? And while saying that, is there a way of ensuring that there's no systematic bias in the algorithm? Because if I'm designing an algorithm, I'm designing it from one point of view. And while the neural networks program themselves, and over time, when the data is churning through a large language model, it masks itself. And all of us are aware of what kind of black box we are not aware of what kind of black box we are dealing with. After some time, the algorithm will stop talking to us, right? So
I think
what kind of bias is there?
Yeah.
Just finishing, and the other, if there are any other ethical concerns that need to be adequately addressed without hampering innovation. So
Okay, so
that's the key.
2 things are there. At the school level, there are 2 major teachable activities happen during the entire tenure of a child in the school. Teachable topics, all the people they teach and they learn, and the narrower the subject is, be it history, science, they are done with the way Professor Bahera had outlined, and I think resources are there. But during the 10, 11 years or 12 years of school which the child undergoes, there are extraordinary number of things which the child learns, which are, I would put it under one umbrella called soft skill. They learn to observe people, they learn how to make things, they learn what people think about other people. And when we start implementing AI in various non-narrow areas, which means broader areas of decision making, which is where innovation and skill comes through. The question then, therefore, is when you talk about innovation and you're talking about design, the question is, do you design for what and design for what good? Are you designing for exclusively yourself? Is it a particular narrow region of efficiency you're looking at, or is it a particularly region of usability among people? So that becomes then the students find it difficult to understand what is good and bad. Now, there is a whole issue of narrative. These days, people are talking about what is taught in school defines the narrative of what the child becomes later. And when this word narrative is, in a sense, often misused because we get conflicting narratives. No, who decides what is a good narrative? So while we have a lot of training data to teach subjects, technical subject, math subjects, which are non-debatable. A math subject is non-debatable because the outputs are ready, the outcomes are clear, and it is non-debated. However, we are teaching history, then the question then becomes, it's a very vague. What is history? And we are having a big turmoil in the way history is being taught. We are talking about NEP 2020. 2020, NEP 20 encompasses a whole world view of things, not only subjects. And there's a big focus on experiential learning. When you do experiential learning and bring AI into it, whose experience are we incorporating in the AI model? Is it an experience from the few in the city? Is it experience from a few villages in, say, Rajasthan? Or is it experience from few villages in Tamil Nadu? What about the other children then? If they rely on these two data points, what does a child in Bihar learn? He has no reference point to learn from. So then it becomes, Professor Bera talked about translating in 22 languages, but then we now need a data set which is relevant for every small group of similar children across various states, and they learn from what they see. And if you push them something which they have not seen, then they will go there. For what example I can give you here is color. I mean,
Yeah,
people
just
are
one
taught
thing
color. Nobody
I
learns
wanted to
color.
mention. You
Yeah.
touched upon a very interesting topic that, translation, which Professor Behra had mentioned. The challenge is the story still remains of a certainly different context. Even if you translate it, it does not become local. And the absence of local content is becoming more and more challenging. We know a lot about the Grimm's fairy tales and Cinderellas and all Disney princesses of the world, but the challenge is we don't know the folklores of the region that we live in. And there's no technological intervention of integrating that kind of local knowledge into the system. Just by translating it something, say for example, a Polish story into Bengali does not make it Bengali.
Absolutely. In fact, current story adaptations are limited to names and a few changes in, say, food item if it is talking about, or the dress if you're talking about, but the essence still remains foreign, so to speak. And in fact,
The
in
whole
certain
cultural ethos
words,
is missing in that kind of
yes,
narrative that you're talking about.
yes. So in fact, for example, in US, an Indian can't go and talk about the Red Indian story. It is not allowed because they say you don't come from that ethos. So you can't even tell a story, though you may know a story. So that being the case, your point is valid as to how do you translate such a notional concept like ethos into languages, and how do you teach that? So, for example, honesty could be the other thing. You could have examples of honesty, but you can't teach. How do you teach uh, adherence to attention to detail? Extremely difficult to teach. Or the Japanese concept of wabi sabi. How do you tolerate imperfection?
Just,
You can't do that.
because you mentioned it, I have a follow-up question for you, Professor Narasimhan. That, see, we are dealing with education in an age of information overload and technological overload. the kind of information I knew or you knew or Professor Behra knew when we were growing up. Right? I grew up in the 90s and early 2000s. It was the majority of the sources where you have to go to the library and look at the encyclopedia. I mean, I belong to the generation which was transitioning. We saw the dial-up connection, which should take 5 minutes to connect, just so bad. But now that information overload is also there. So the kind of synaptic fatigue which also happens, which no technological engagement in the classroom, satisfy. So what do you think about it?
Yeah, so as an educator, we try to focus on three important concepts, saying that people have too much of information.
Yeah.
Improve their comprehension skills, improve their ability to comprehend from 3-4 sources and make up the so-called truth, which they think it is. And then it is not enough to comprehend truth and say you have to communicate it to people. How do you communicate to people? So there's a whole slew of data visualization, storytelling, the whole thing about telling what you have learned. And finally, ability to reason out, therefore, what? And therefore, leading to some coherent decision making. And therefore, that computing ability is there. We are focusing on this because this is the only way you can continuously enable children to learn, because the outside world is changing very rapidly. And today you are having LLMs, tomorrow may have absolutely something else. And how do we tackle that? Because the element of truth is becoming grayer and grayer. And in an entire room full of dark, you need to find out that small speck of gray, which is probably the truth. And that's where the challenge is.
I think at this point, I would also like to mention a little tangential engagement with the Gödel's incompleteness theorem.
Yes.
While it's a very interesting notion which certainly erupts in the era of information overload and technological intervention. What Gödel says is that in any mathematical formulation, there exists one element which is true but is not provable, which makes the entire mathematical expression or a logical expression by the extension of the argument inherently incomplete. Now, what is the implication of this incompleteness theorem? The implication of this incompleteness theorem is that Gödel, in the end, ends up creating a distinction between the truth or the true and the actual. So we thought this is a very theoretical concept in this, we're going back to the 40s and the 50s. Now we have to, by force, understand what does the true mean and what does the actual mean, right? And on that note, I would like to go to Suhani. And I want to ask you, Suhani, that, from your perspective, what are the key concerns that you have and what kind of potential drawbacks that you think are there when you're using, for example, artificial intelligence for learning? And how do you think that schools such as your school or any school for that matter in the country and beyond ensure that integrate technology, integrate artificial intelligence technologies, machine learning algorithms and everything, but to augment learning experience, not to diminish it? And the larger question for you is, as a student, because you basically are cradle of hope, is that what do you think will happen to human creativity in the long run when we are engaging with technology? Do you think the cyborgs will rise? Because it's a very valid question.
Right. So I would like to start with addressing some of the main problems that occur with AI. So one of the most common issues is over-reliance. As we talked about earlier, there is a lot of information available online. It's very easy to let AI do all the heavy lifting, because why would you do a task yourself which AI can generate for you in seconds? The problem is that we rely on AI so much that we are at a risk of losing our creativity and critical thinking skills, especially with the generation that's coming now. And with so much of information overload, it's very common now to have burnouts, and the new generation coming is becoming very aggressive if they are not around their devices for a very long period of time. And I think that is something we should address. Secondly, I would also like to mention that another challenge is privacy. AI tools often ask about personal data, but do we ever stop to think about where our data is going, especially as students? We will just see, okay, terms and conditions are here, press go on and move forward. So I think that is one thing students need to be very mindful about, because sure, it might be a very trusted site, but you don't know where your data is going. So one solution to that is obviously creating a separate email that you just use for AI tools. But who is to say that when that email is open on your desktop, that the data from other sites is not leaking out as well? So students need to really see where we're sharing our data. Then we have copyright issues as another major area where students need to be cautious. Just as AI generates content or images for you, it doesn't mean it's free to use however you want. In such cases, plagiarism plays a very big role, because as students, we just think, okay, no one will get to know. We will just take whatever is written or whatever is generated and put it in our projects. But citation is very, very important, because students need to understand the repercussions and the IT laws that are there for plagiarism and copyright issues, because these softwares aren't free to use. For example, especially softwares like Midjourney and Dolly.
Perplexity does. Perplexity gives you everything what you say with citation. So that, but I mean, I have a follow-up question on this matter. That is, so the definition of plagiarism also has to change. What do we mean by plagiarism? Earlier, when we used to write, oh my God, I feel so old now. Yeah, but the thing is that the transition has happened a lot. Is that everybody used to have I mean, maybe still has a writing style, and there are favorite words, and somebody who's read a lot has a lot of vocabulary. Now all of that is replaced by artificial intelligence algorithm, because it has all vocabulary. I mean, you don't need to read. It has memorized a lot of stuff. But the thing is that even if when you're doing citations, as Professor Narasimhan has just mentioned, that just knowing something and citing it does not mean comprehending it.
Right, definitely. That does not mean, but what we're also trying to say is you need to be mindful of where you're picking it from, because AI, as my next point comes, artificial intelligence is obviously taking its data from a certain place. And that data is biased because it takes up based on patterns and recognition. If there is a certain pattern of certain data being higher or it's being chosen more, it will directly display you only those sections of data. It will not consider all sites. So when you are taking something from AI, you need to know if your information is correct or not. You need to validate it from multiple sites for that to also not be plagiarized. Because AI will definitely, it might generate something for me and something else for you, but because it's taking from the same data feed, it might just change the words a little, but it's giving the same essence. That is, I think we should also take in consideration of plagiarism. It's not always taking someone else's work and taking it as your own.
Thank you. Yes, Professor Nasim.
So I think that's an interesting point here. So as I always tell people, the half truth becomes more important with AI rather than the truth, in the sense that just to give an example which I gave a few days back, if I ask what is the largest country or the largest place in Brazil, or which is largest economy in uh, South America, depending on the data source where the AI has been trained, if you ask ChatGPT, it will give you an answer which is reasonably right. In the sense, it will be in the top 5 countries in South America, and it will be, if you take the top 5 countries by population, it will be there. If you take by economy, it will be there, but it will be in different positions in the top 5. But that's not what your question was. So the question there is that you will take that answer and probably use it somewhere else without realizing the nuance which has brought in the difference, and that is not correct. So it is very therefore difficult to pinpoint an AI and say this is the exact question I want, and that's where we are having difficulty in teaching people. How do you make AI give you a very specific answer? You don't know the answer. It is giving you the answer, but is the answer specific? If someone says, what is the largest country in the world? The largest country in the world by population is probably China. By land, it could be Russia. So we don't know that. And without specifying, we will be giving in the general area where it is right, but it is not right. So it becomes a situation where set of facts become a fiction.
Yeah.
And that is where the problem lies. But therefore, yes, citation is good. It will give you the right citation. But is your conclusion right from those citations? That is the problem. And also, what Pranav mentioned about communicating it forward, that again becomes a thing. So you might publish it, but you are really not sure what you have published.
So just one quick comment I want from Sohani, and then we'll move to the question answer session.
Okay.
Sohani, it's a very specific question which I wanted to answer for the benefit of the larger audience and especially the students. Then how do you think that students, maintain their role as active creators rather than the passive consumers of AI-driven content?
Right. So as students, I would like to say rather than we just taking things from AI, learning and looking, right now with the current increase in technology and personalized learning available, students are also learning at the same pace. We're learning more data. We're starting to create our own AIs for that matter. If you go ahead and you see some schools, we do have options where we can start creating our own AIs for a certain and where we feed our own data that we want. So rather than becoming passive consumers where we're just taking whatever we're given, we're also taught to take sites and information from different sites and create our own databases. We are also turning into creators as such.
Yeah, perfect. So I have one question for the panel. There are a couple of very interesting questions that have come to us. The first question that I would like to ask the panel, you've seen what globalization has done to cities. Now, Gurgaon looks same as Hyderabad, which looks same as Detroit. Right? So how do we ensure that that AI is leveraged to amplify human creativity? Right? I'm just interpreting in a very different context. So how do we leverage AI to amplify human creativity rather than homogenizing it, which I think is the most imminent danger of using artificial intelligence or machine learning tools? What do you think?
Can I answer that?
Yeah.
So as I said, there is a real danger of homogenizing, because if you're using a more and more popular AI tool or a corpus which is very popular, everybody will refer to the same corpus and probably come up with a similar solution for many of their problems. And that will become gospel after some time, until a situation comes in where it is perceived as a noise, and therefore people start moving away from that corpus. And that will happen only when the type of the problem they are facing changes, or there's an entire change in the environment which is absolutely new, which no one has anticipated before. And therefore they are stuck with a problem which is amazingly so fresh that there is no history for it. And only then we will start employing our mind. So I would go back to the old adage that necessity is the mother of invention. When the necessity is low, invention obviously is low. So you have to push oneself forward and come away and step back, so to speak, to solve a particular problem. With every new day in the future, we will have more and more unimaginable problems which can't be imagined now, because solutions of today will become problems of tomorrow if we use AI. And unless you solve a problem in a longer sense of time, today's problem will be today's solution will be tomorrow's problem, and you keep using AI, but you never get to a point where I say I put this to rest for 10 decades or 20 decades.
Anyways, I'll read out the question and then we'll take it from there. So the question is, how do we foresee, Professor Narasimhan, Sohani, how do you think? How do we foresee the role of artificial intelligence evolving in terms of personalized learning experiences in the very near future?
Right. Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Right. So when we see AI and we continuously seeing that AI is trying to be at par with teachers, if let's say not in front of educators. So in that case, personalized learning is becoming very popular. Let's say, for example, in a classroom where not every kid is at par with this subject, you cannot stop the class and put them at a standstill that you will teach a certain section and only then will you move forward. In that case, when you take AI's algorithms and pattern recognitions for personalized learning, it'll be much easier to feed the data of the particular child and for the AI to know its patterns and generate a personalized learning lesson plan for that kid to also side by side catch up with the student. This kid obviously will be taught by the teacher, but the inculcation of AI in it will make it much more simpler for everyone. It can be broken down as many times as required by the student to learn, because personalized learning will benefit them more as if they are not grasping the concept in class, also making them at par with everyone else.
Perfect. Professor Nurseman, do you have a comment on this?
Yeah, I have, what AI can do is it can keep track of the way a student has learned and answered earlier encounters in questioning. And it can use the data very well, and it can be uh, useful for creating a personalized plan. We know that there are 14 or 15 major learning styles for students, and this is where AI can help because it can fine tune a particular delivery of a concept in an auditory mode or in a visual mode or in a computational mode, so that the student who's likely to have that particular learning style can absorb the same concept as well as a student who has another type of learning skill. I think that is where definitely both slow and advanced learners can be addressed in a manner which is suitable for both of them. And at the end of the day, both are equally well equipped for the concept which has been delivered in the class. That's where I think it can definitely help.
So, one last question that I have for both of you is, we know that we have reached a stage where machine learning algorithms and AI are indispensable. I mean, we cannot stop the idea whose time has come, and we are way past that point. Having said that, there are nation states across the globe which have still very controlled use of gadgets such as mobiles or other things in schools. Residential schools primarily have those kind of strict controls because of various reasons, and they exist from developed to developing to underdeveloped, all kinds of nation states from east to west and everywhere in between. And these kind of tools and that kind of technological intervention requires a medium, be it a mobile phone, be it a laptop or any other smart gadget. So what do you think should be the recommendation, especially for the people who come from schools, who are here in the audience, and for the wider public in general, then how much of gadget use is important in that kind of technological intervention? There are two aspects. One is that when nobody's watching, then nobody's watching. What you're doing is between you and the gadget. The other part is that the amount of screen time is also reducing your cognitive skills. It's proven. It's there. There's a lot of research. So it's not a win-win. It's a barter of sorts. And on what side of barter do we want to stand? So that's the question.
There are two things when we say device and device usage. I think there are two points in this. One, device for learning comprehension vis-a-vis device for communicating. If you were to differentiate this, however thin the line is, what happens? We are removing the distraction due to communication, wanting to talk to others, wanting to publish things at one point of time in a small time space t, which is where we want them to focus on the learning aspect of it. The device can't be blamed for that. So what we can do is that we allow devices to continue to do whatever research they want, whatever findings they want, whatever comprehension they want to do, not for distraction. Now, if you were to define this in a manner, because then the question is, what is distraction? Talking to others is also a way of learning. So that is the other argument. We will have a conundrum there. So if you were to differentiate in a manner which is amicable for both the parties, that would be good. But I don't see it easy to implement simply because the whole question, therefore, is communication is also an aspect of learning. Talking to 5 people and understanding their point of view is also learning. So that's where we are probably up the wall. But it is a difficult thing. But open book exams are here to stay because in the real world, you're going to refer to all the chat GPTs, Googles of the world. So no point having a system of learning where rote becomes important, where recollection becomes important. That has to go or will go. Whatever choice little we may have, residential or otherwise, that will slowly erode. That is my opinion.
So, Hani, any
Right.
comments?
Definitely. So I think again the question we're asking ourselves, to paraphrase yours, is which side of the boat are we standing on, and how much AI is too much to use, how much information is too much for us. So in my opinion, rather than asking us which party to stand on, which side of it, why don't we not just make both of it? Why don't we make use of all the options rather than saying that too much screen time is scientifically, as you say, is proving to be harmful or hindering our cognitive abilities? Why not use it as a digital mentor, a digital tutor who will also side by side help you, make you understand, and actually boost your thinking skills and logical skills? Like, if you are not understanding a concept, don't go for AI to explain it to me. Go it line by line, paragraph by paragraph, that I am having problems with this. I just need you to explain to me why is this happening, so that I also retain my own originality and creativity, but side by side also taking help from a digital tutor who's giving me more points, who's verifying my information also.
Perfect. Perfect. That's a great note to bring our panel discussion conclusion. Thank you so much, our panelists, Professor Narasimhan, Suhani, this Professor Behra. He had to leave, unfortunately, earlier. But thank you so much. Thank you. Over to Choki.
Thank you, Pranav. I think I'm speaking on everyone's behalf when I say that this webinar was very enriching, especially talking to the consumer side of the technological world, where we are talking to policymakers, we are talking to a content creator, we are talking to an IT specialist on how they are working on addressing day-to-day challenges and issues that we have in technology. Some of the comments that I wanted to make was the idea that Suhani touched upon. Human touch is and cannot be replaced. But what technology can do is become a digital mentor, and it's a really, really good starting point. So I think that was really well done. In terms of Behra, the whole idea of the scale of NEP and what technology can do, and possibly go to the last mile, it's very important, and also very interesting to note that the 4 languages textbooks can now be available and translated in 22 different languages and be available to as many people widely possible. I think, Ishwaran, you really, really touched upon the idea that algorithms and data at the end of the day are made by humans and are as susceptible to human flaws and human errors like anything in life. So the whole idea of really thinking about who the data is for, how transparent it is, how efficient it is, becomes really important. And the idea about the good quality data and how what we can do at the moment is really focus on the 3 concepts that you mentioned. I thought was really important. Mentioning really looking through information, figuring out what the information is there, sifting through information, and making a decision for yourself. Then being able to communicate that decision with other people, and at the same time reasoning out, like you said, and making some sort of analysis. So thank you everyone for all these very, very strong points. To conclude, I would like to thank the organizers and the team members at PLS, CEP, and Ritinjali who helped in organizing this webinar and ensured that the entire process was seamless. I would like to thank our moderator, Pranav, and all our three panelists for an illuminating discussion and for all their valuable perspectives and enthusiastic participation. Finally, thank you, members of the audience, for listening in, posing questions, and engaging in discussions. Your participation definitely added to the depth of the question as well as the topic at hand. And your participation always helps make all of our webinars, especially the chat section and the Q&A section, really engaging and illuminating. Thank you once again to everyone, and we hope that you have learned as much as we have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.